Like, thanks for having me. It's always an honor to be talking to you guys. I'm a big fan. Look, Moldy Whopper started like 4 or 5 years ago. It's more than just a campaign. We started in a journey of cleaning up our ingredients, which is not easy to do. Like when I say cleaning up, it's like removing artificial stuff, removing fillers, removing MSG, removing anything that detracts from the food being real. And in reality, it's like I think most fast food brands, they added that type of stuff because it tends to be cheaper. It tends to keep the food like looking good for longer. It helps with operations and all that. So if you want to get away with that addiction, it's not easy. Like it impacts the taste, it impacts operations, it impacts like cost. And we started that journey like 4 or 5 years ago.
Fast food, an industry that offers convenient, craveable food at a good value. But
you put out a big pack and you could keep it there forever, right?
Right here.
No fungus, no mold, no smell.
Why is there no mold on that?
well, because of all the stuff we put in our food.
What we put in our bodies.
It's time to change that.
What a difference a day made.
Burger King is rethinking the image of its signature Whopper burger.
They're turning a lot of heads with a new ad, and maybe some stomachs too.
Showing that mold can be a beautiful thing.
It shows a Moldy Whopper as a way to announce that the fast food chain will no longer put preservatives in their food.
The beauty
of no artificial preservatives.
I think it's great. It's very risky, but I think it's a really neat commercial.
It's fascinating and gross at the same time. When I watch this, I'm like, I can't unsee this, but also I can't stop watching it.
When one company makes a decision like this, it certainly have ripples effects across the whole industry.
So is this really the best way to sell a burger?
Well, I know the difference in you.
Look, they're taking out preservatives. This is the real deal.
I think it really speaks to the fact that companies are hearing this huge tectonic shift of customers asking real questions about what's in their food.
They're removing preservatives because they feel real food tastes better.
The difference is you.
Moldy was like the campaign itself. To me, it was the cherry on a cake of a work that we were doing for a long time, and we decided to wait and not talk about it until we completed the work. Right. So today we are clean in Europe. Like the Whopper is getting clean in the U.S. We are getting clean in when I say clean, it's like no artificial stuff. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, we know that. Every time we try to just like put a message out there in a very flat, boring, like traditional way, it doesn't work for our brand. Like, so if I had an ad with like a bunch of people in the backyard flipping burgers and talking about how wholesome the burgers are now, that everything is real, no one cares about that stuff. Like people get so bombarded by messages and advertising that it just goes over people's heads. And we know that, like, based on research, based on data. And in my case, we have a brand that it's not the biggest spender in the fast food category. So anything I do needs to stand out, get like talked about, get press coverage, hopefully. And Moldy was not the first campaign we did that checked those boxes of like getting talkability and all that. So I always tell people like that, like if Moldy were like done on year one of the journey of getting the company excited about creativity and excited about doing things differently, it will probably not get done. Like you need to pave your way to do something like Moldy Whopper. when I shared, I don't need necessarily to get approval from the board, right? I mean, I share because I want people to come along with the journey. My CEO backs us up like 100%. So they know that when I share something, when I say like, hey guys, this is a big one for us, it's really important, it's an important project, they became comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Like if I show something that doesn't make them uncomfortable, they find it odd, believe it or not. You know, like they are like, and usually the reaction is like, yeah, this makes me very uncomfortable. It's probably going to work because they understand how this brand works. So it was not that hard, to be honest, to get Moldy through, because I think we paved our way to that, to being able to do something like that. And in this case specifically, we saw a version of the idea, which was not like exactly what we did, but a version of the idea around 2-3 years ago from David Miami. And we decided not to pursue at that stage because our product was not clean yet. So we liked the idea, but we didn't evolve the idea because we were still doing the work on the product side. Then I would say around a year ago, give or take, we saw a version of the idea that was evolved by total coincidence coming from Ingo, which is the agency that we work in Sweden. So like Bjorn, who is the creative head there, like this amazing guy. He did like Swedish Number, you know what I mean? Like they have like a very high caliber creative team, and they presented that to us together with the Swedish team, which is Ivo, it's the CMO for BK in Sweden, and the regional team for EMEA for Europe, and we really liked it, and we thought, well, this is even better. Because it was an evolution by coincidence of what we've seen before, and we are very close to be able to say those things. So let's work on it together. And then I said, look, guys, Bjorn, you are WPP. The guys that presented first are also WPP. Why don't you guys talk? And I know that Bjorn gets along really well with the guys from David and vice versa. They sit on the same cadre, which is the creative council for Ogilvy. And then they spoke and said, hey, you know what? We want to develop together. Yeah. So David, Miami, and Ingo started to work on the stuff. And then literally a couple of months later, the idea was already started to get produced and all that. I had a meeting with Publicis. Publicis does some work for us in Europe. And the guy said, look, I mean, we have a couple of proactive ideas to show you, and they have some really cool stuff. And in the mix of that there was some stuff that I felt we could use as part of the production of Moldy Whopper. You know, and then I told them, guys, I mean, during the presentation, I already sent them the deck from Ingo to make sure that, guys, I mean, we're already working on this, okay? But there are some things on the copy, on the way you are doing the art direction, even though it was a mock-up, that I like. And I want to show the guys, you know, and then I told them, but I will ask them if they will need to trust my view as a client, because I went to them and said, guys, I just saw something by accident because we didn't brief them from Publicis. I think it would make our stuff even stronger than what already is. But if I show you, we need to give credit to Publicis. And we need to work with them because I don't think it's fair, right? And then they said, and that's the thing, you know, I think that I give a lot of merit to the creative partners that work with us because they all tend to be extremely collaborative. You know, there is no drama, diva behavior, inflated egos. They just want to do good work for the brand. So the moment I said, guys, I think this will make it better, they're like, sure, let's see and let's bring them in. You know, and then we brought Publicis in, and Ingo produced everything. They were already producing when Publicis joined the team, and then it was 5 Pancho from David, together with Zampa, Zaro, together with Ste, who is the account person, Bjorn and his team, and especially Dudu and Jorg from Publicis, even like the award submissions, like when we sent to the D&AD, it was shared, split between the 3 agencies. They split the fees for the award. So it has been very collaborative, and everyone feels good about it. I think that diversity tends to make any process more creative, right? I mean, the moment you have different points of view, I personally believe that it makes anything richer and more creative. We usually do have a lot of diversity in terms of nationality of people working on the brand, because we have lots of very strong global agents that end up like doing global work, whether it's Germany with Grabars, or in the UK with BBH London, or in Brazil with David São Paulo, or in France with Buzzman. Those guys, they come from different places in terms of the thinking. And in this case, oddly enough, the 3 agencies kind of like converged somewhat to a similar place, and they were able to collaborate and work together, and that made the idea better. And like in the end, the one that won is the brand and the business, because for the consumer it doesn't really matter where the idea comes from, and they were able to understand that and work in a very collaborative way to pull it off. I think it's a combination of 2 things. I think it's a combination of our business model. Most of our business in all countries, with the exception of the US, is driven. We have a franchisee partner, right? So we have a master franchisee in France, a master franchisee in Germany, a master franchisee in Brazil, a master franchisee in the UK. Usually they are different, and they have a marketing team, which on paper doesn't necessarily report to me, because it's a different company. But we work very collaboratively together. So when a country, it doesn't happen that often, but like when a country decides to have an agency, we talk, and then we handpick an agency we tend to work with agencies that are small to medium size. We go for people more than the label, you know what I mean? I know that I can count with Buzzman because George is there. I know I can count with David because Pancho is there. I know I can count with Gut because Anselmo is there. I know I can count with Ingo because Bjorn is there. So it's a very personal relationship that we have. And we tend to work with small, medium, because we think that they are more nimble and they move at the speed that we need. And because they give a disproportionate amount of love for the brand. I would fear, not that it couldn't work, but I would fear a bit to be another brand in a big agency. I think that Moldy, I love ideas with tension. You know what I mean? And it's almost like, it's molding in front of you, and you shouldn't like that, but you just can't stop watching, because it's mesmerizing. And it makes a very powerful point, the beauty of real food is that it gets ugly over time, and if I just show real beautiful food, which is what everyone else does, I don't think the point would land so powerfully. So I think that the combination of Haggerty, I think it's a phrase from Haggerty, that a great campaign is 80% the idea and 80% the craft. A great idea with impeccable craft is what tends to get recognition from the D&AD. And to me, that's why I love Moldy so much. It's not just because it's groundbreaking. It's a campaign that's an instant classic that 10 years from now, people are going to still be talking about Moldy. It's one of those that some people love, some people hate. It doesn't really matter. The consumers liked it and it drove the attributes for the brand, and it drove sales for us. But because it's so different, You know, like one thing I've learned is that like these days, like it doesn't really matter what you do. Some people will criticize no matter what. You know, like the only time when people don't criticize is when we do something that's irrelevant. You know, so if you're doing something that's relevant, one of the side effects is there will be criticism, and it's fine. You know, I remember when Gorilla came out, people criticized Gorilla. You know, people still criticize 1984. You know, like people criticize Surfer. So like it doesn't matter, like because it was the right. All those examples drove business, drove brand. You know, like and there is data to back that up. So great idea, impeccable craft, and then you have something as powerful as Moldy was. I think that usually, like if you do something that stands out, if you have a great idea, it usually stands out. And usually if it stands out, it gets talked about. You know, like it's just a consequence, you know, like of like the world we live in. You know, like I think that if I think about Black Panther winners from last year, right? New York Times, yeah, it got a ton of pickup. Microsoft, yeah, it was talked about like everywhere. It was a Super Bowl ad, but that like it was bigger than just that. I think Viva La Vulva also got, yeah, which was like again like extremely like talked about everywhere, even though it was done in a relatively small country in Europe. So I think it's just a consequence of doing something powerful that stands out, and then people talk about, and then press ends up like covering it a little bit. But like that's the thing, you know, like I love the debate, you know, like and I had fun like reading critics and positives, you know. To me, like if that's happening, it means that you stroke a chord. You stroke a nerve with people, and they are talking about Burger King. They're talking about Burger King removing artificial crab from the product, which is what we wanted. You know, like the sentiment from consumers around this campaign is 88% positive neutral. We end up like having a lot of neutral, which is like people retweeting the headlines. You know, like Burger King removes artificial stuff from the products. So it's overwhelmingly positive. Like we sold 14% more, like during the period coming out of the campaign, comparing to the year before, of like the products like the Whopper and all that. The perception of the like high quality ingredient perception increased like 26%. I mean, you don't have like those shifts that easily, you know, like because people just don't care. You know, people don't pay attention. Like life is much more complex than whatever Burger King is doing with their ingredients. You know, like people don't want to be thinking about that. So if you want to land the message, you really need to go for it. You know, like and do something that will like deserve people to command people to pay attention, and that's what Moldy Whopper did. It is, but like I think that like in the beginning, like if you, I've been with DK for 6 years now, 6.5, and in the beginning I was very anxious about getting the numbers, you know, like because I was trying to build my credibility and build the case for creativity. Now, like it's like even if we do something wrong, which we can, because we are really pushing the boundaries of like what is possible. But even when you do something wrong, we are humble about it. Like we learn from it, and then we apply the learning next time we do something. And so I don't feel as much the pressure. Of course, everyone gets anxious when you're launching a Moldy Whopper, right? But like I know that I have the support of my leadership team, which is my peers and our CEO, like 100%, you know, like and if something goes wrong, I will hold myself accountable, and I will try to shield the team from that, so that we can keep pushing, keep trying to do it differently. Usually for us, when something goes wrong, it's like no one cared about it. Like no one spoke about it, and that tends to be the outcome of most like campaigns that people are not willing to do something different. So you may as well try to do something different, because the worst that can happen tends to be nothing, really. You know what I mean? I can give you some examples. Like Burger King is known for being like a fun brand, right? I mean, we are in a fun category, it's like fast food. I mean, you go to any fast food restaurant, people like usually they're having fun. And we want to be a fun brand in a fun category. So like I find Moldy Whopper incredibly self-deprecating, you know what I mean? Like in a way which like can be interpreted as funny. But the point is, you need to like, even like with all the pressure of COVID-19 and people being locked at home and this and that, like we all need some comic relief. You know what I mean? Like I was like, I still am. Like this background is fake. I'm not in a restaurant. I mean, like just staying home watching the news, it can be pretty depressing. Like, and that was like everyone was doing. Like CNN was on here like 24 hours a day, and it was the end of the world. So the brand has a role to play, even in considering the context that's out there. When you forget that, when you forget who your brand is and what's your tone of voice, you risk doing things that could, like, you could slap the logo of any brand in the end. So we did things such as Stay Home with the Whopper, which was inviting people to stay at home and like as being like the most heroic thing that they can do. We did the social distancing crown in Germany, which was like this massive crown that looks like a sombrero. My team calls it like the crownbrero, because like this mixture of crown and sombrero. In Italy, we did the social distancing Whopper, which was a Whopper with 3 times more onions so that people stay away from you. Like, and no one took offense on those things. Everyone is like trying to see, like, seeing it as a brand trying to do something that puts a smile on people's face when they probably need the most. Like in the past, we did Proud Whopper, which is serious. Like that was 2014, by the way. It was one of the first campaigns we did. And it was a yellow pencil in design, I think, on D&AD. And it's like, the idea is that it's a piece of paper, right? I mean, which is the rainbow flag. Like we wrapped the Whopper. We told people like that was a Proud Whopper, and people like debating what was different about it. And it was nothing different, just the wrap. And inside the wrap, it was written, we are all the same inside. And that was the message. But you watch the film there, it takes you in an emotional journey. There are moments that are very touching. There are moments that are really funny. Because that's how the brand is. Or like when we did Bullying Junior, for instance, which was making a point against bullying. And we had like a guy, we staged a bullying in the restaurant, and we had like a crew member bullying a Whopper Junior. It's like bullshit, just like damaging the sandwich. And then people complain about the sandwich, but no one raised their voice to say that there was something going wrong in the restaurant with the bullying of the kid. Again, it's touching, but there are moments that are funny. Because that's the type of brand that you are. And I think no matter what topic you're talking about, whether it's purposeful, whether it's a product demo, whether like is a recruitment campaign to bring people in, I think that the more you can stay true to who you are as a brand, the more you'll be attracting the people who actually want to have a relationship with you as a brand, because they will see you as the brand that you are. I think that anything that's guaranteed, it's probably going to give you low risk and low return, right? I mean, I don't know anything that's guaranteed high return. If I knew, I wouldn't be working at RBI. I would be like in my own island. But like, there is no, I think there is no such thing. I think that people tend to gravitate towards trying to get as comfortable as they can with stuff. And then that's why there is so much average work out there. There is a lot of great work. I love our industry, but there is a lot of average work too, right? And the thing is, like, when we are working on something and I know how to do and test, I know that test well, everyone is comfortable with it, chances are it's going to be average. Even for Popeyes and Tim Hortons, which are also brands in our portfolio, like when I'm doing stuff that feels safe, like it usually doesn't work. Usually like no one cares. So it's I know it's a bit counterintuitive because we all try to manage up our bosses and the stakeholders and all this. And when you do that really well, when you prove the results and all that, you are probably not doing the best work you can do. Like I don't have issues doing market research. I have issues with people who blindly follow the research result. But I only do market research. I only do a lot of market research when I'm investing a lot of money. Because I think that it may show me that I have a blind spot somewhere. But I've done so many campaigns that were like tested not so well in research. And then, because you are testing an animatic or a board, or it's not the real thing, and then when you finalize the thing, it becomes this epic thing. Imagine testing Gorilla with storyboards. You know what I mean? It's impossible. Or testing, doing an aromatic of Epic Split. Like, what are you talking about? Or 1984. You can't. Or Sony. Imagine Sony balls in an animatic. That would be interesting. So it would be very hard. So I prefer. I don't mind testing, but I prefer to make the call, and to work with people who are better than I am in terms of understanding creativity and having a creative ambition. And then out of that mix of people, I'm confident we are going to get hopefully to something that's better than just doing an average spot that tests okay on a link test and that your boss is happy about, but no one will ever care about it. And that's why it's important to have people who are experienced in creative, who are experienced in brand development, with agency people who are experienced in understand the business of the client, understand what you're trying to accomplish, share the same creative ambition, and then just go for it. And I think Moldy Whopper is a classic example of that. We wouldn't be talking about the fact that Burger King cleaned up its ingredients had we not done Moldy Whopper. It would be irrelevant. In the grand scheme of things, it would come at the very bottom of the list of things you want to think about on your day-to-day. I am so proud of this campaign, not because of the awards, and for sure it's super flattering and all that. But the thing is, I remember when I left Unilever, I was in Unilever for 18 years, last 4 in Black Fridays in London, working for Dove. And when I left, I remember going to a friend of mine, my best friend in Unilever, who is not in Unilever anymore, but I went to her and said, look, I'm leaving. And then she said, what? You've been here for 18 years. Where are you going? And I said, Burger King. And then she said, what the fuck are you going to do at Burger King? I'm going to poison people and destroy the environment. And I'm like, no, I'm going there exactly to try to change some of those things. And she's like, why don't you go and work for Whole Foods? Why don't you go and work for this startup here or that startup? They don't need me. I can make a much bigger impact if I go to a big global brand, who seems to want to do the right thing, and they just need help doing the right thing. And I think that from day one, we've been working on improving the quality of the food, creating a nutritional roadmap, removing the crap, very technical way to put it, out of the products. And we did, and how did we communicate that? With a campaign that 10 years from now, maybe people are going to still be discussing.